In the greater history of the Kingdom Hearts series, we know, let me reiterate, we absolutely know that a X-Blade once existed and was recognized as the counterpart of Kingdom Hearts, and in a war for the ownership of light, it shattered into 7 pieces of light and 13 pieces of darkness. Let's dial back the clock and look at this more intrinsically, as I think there is a lot of details here for this former X-Blade, where it came from, and potentially how the Master of Masters used Xehanort to create another one, and then we will wrap it up with what I believe to be Sora's role, as I've stated many times, but I won't state it here. You'll have to watch the whole video, what Sora's role is in this creation of a new X-Blade. So far we know of 2 points in the greater history of the Kingdom Hearts series, Kingdom Hearts Key and Kingdom Hearts Dark Road. However, the aforementioned events of the legacy of the Chi Blade does not appear in Chi itself, but these events are alluded to by the Master of Masters. This should be ample evidence that the events that house the shattering of the X-Blade to be beyond the age of fairy tales when we look back into the past. Well, we already know that the Master of Masters was once a wielder of the Keyblade. He says this verbatim himself. Despite the fact that this may not be evident or readily identifiable, the Master seems to no longer be a wielder, with this disposition being shared between himself and Luxu. When he lost the no-name Keyblade, Luxu no longer had a Keyblade to claim as his own, meaning either the Master never pulled his Keyblade out of his heart, or the no-name is his Keyblade, but the Master fixed it with his eye and then returned it to Luxu. At the time when we see it handed to him in back cover, this is done purposefully to keep us confused, as the Master never makes the claim that the no-name is specifically his very own Keyblade. He always uses phrases like that Keyblade, this Keyblade, the blade Luxu has. However, he does distinctively say about the Keyblade that it houses his eye or my eye. And I think this is where the confusion of the Keyblade comes from. This is why people attribute the no-name to the Master of Masters himself. They believe it to be his Keyblade. Young Xehanort saying that the no-name is the most ancient Keyblade in existence also doesn't help with people's understanding that the no-name apparently is not the Keyblade of the Master of Masters. And this is all preamble to the overarching point I'm trying to make. The Master of Masters stated that in his youth, he was the most important Keyblade wielder during his era. We know that this era predates the age of fairy tales because he makes the distinction of his age between youth and adulthood. The events of the shattering of the X-Blade was in his youth specifically. This is where I get the assertion that the Master of Masters was initially the wielder of the X-Blade when it shattered. Prior to that, he probably was the wielder of the Kingdom Key, but there's no factual basis for that. I just think that it makes the most sense. Somehow he achieved the X-Blade through a separate means from how Xehanort achieves it, as we see him to do within the Kingdom Hearts series. I'm going to use fanfiction as supposition of events we don't know, and say that in the Master of Masters' youth, we know that the darknesses once had forms. I think the Master of Masters probably did have an Arden-like story for all of the Final Fantasy Versus 13 people. Here you are. Here's me kind of giving you guys what you want here. Where he and his party traversed the one world, Keyblades in hand, and he defeated the darknesses when they had forms, absorbing their essences into himself. Once he defeated the darknesses, their power penetrated him, and from the X-Blade was forged. Just as Arden was trusted by the gods to destroy and conceal the darkness in Final Fantasy 15 and became ungodly and then abandoned. Maybe that goddess mentioned by player character in Chi's finale entrusted the Master of Masters with a similar role within Kingdom Hearts, but this role couldn't possibly feature the being betrayed portion of Arden's story by the goddess herself, because the X-Blade is said to be the counterpart of Kingdom Hearts. In fact, its wielder gets to impose their will via Kingdom Hearts upon the world, so there's no way the goddess betrays the Master of Masters within this far off distant past beyond the age of fairy tales. But to get back on the ball with canon material, another part of the legend is that the X-Blade existence caused another war. This war is the aforementioned War of the Ownership of Light. The Master of Masters most likely was betrayed by the people of his era. This war and these events must be where the X-Blade was shattered, thus begetting the formless versions of the darkness without their physical forms and just their souls, and being denied acceptance into Kingdom Hearts. They were free to wreak havoc upon the world. As the Master of Masters says, these events are what led to the death of his party back then. 13 darknesses and 7 lights. I've stated this in the past and I will stand on it again here. I think Luxu is the Master of Masters' son. When the darkness claimed his life back then, the Master of Masters gave the 7 pieces to him, bringing him back to life, begetting 5 entities we know as, or know to be, the foretellers. There are 5 emblems surrounding the emblem of what is clearly the X-Blade, meticulously hidden as a selection screen for the union you will pick at the beginning of Union Chi. That only reappears in canon when the Master of Masters and Luxu both stand at its center, something that will be repeated when the foretellers return to the world in Kingdom Hearts 3's epilogue.
Did you summon us back?
Yep.
Is that you, Luxu? You look different.
Haven't heard that name in a long while.
But the legacy of the X-Blade does not end with the Age of Fairy Tales. One day during the ending of Xehanort's training under Master Odin, Xehanort meets the Master of Masters after trying to forego his armor and traverse the dark corridors unprotected. During this meeting, he asks Xehanort to glimpse into the hearts of those he meets while traversing the worlds. What makes Xehanort special enough that the Master visits him specifically is that Xehanort is just like Sora within his youth. His heart tethers to others and makes him capable of feeling and seeing into others' hearts. This makes him susceptible to being corrupted and eroded by their emotions, memories, and thoughts. Later, when Xehanort returns to the Master gaslights him into coming to a conclusion he does not reach without his help. That if darkness lives in so many hearts, then he should use his power to bend those people to his will to enact a perversion of justice, by telling him that if he truly possesses great power and great potential, darkness will bend to his will. But Xehanort is a warrior of light at heart. He agrees with the precepts of the Keyblade, and thus what we get a means to reconcile. Thus, what we get is a means to reconcile both truths in Xehanort's life. He sides with the darkness for purposes of achieving what he believes should be the ultimate goal of those who fight for the light, to erase the darkness and create a pure and bright world of order and not one of chaos. Note, in their current state, the worlds, if made aware of each other, would divulge into war. This is the chaos that Xehanort perceives the world to be crippled by. Well, when the Master of Masters leaves him in the Keyblade graveyard, he leaves him with one last gift, the proclamation that he is a lost master, something Xehanort himself is intrigued by when he asks Ericus about the lost masters even further back in his youth. He has the memories of the day the foretellers beat the life out of player character, and when we see him with Vanitas in Dark Road, it's made abundantly clear that Xehanort in some way has become aware of the primordial darknesses and how they infected the foretellers and the Union Chi cast. He knows Vanitas was attached to Ventus and not a part of Ventus. Xehanort takes this knowledge of the past and the history of the KH universe to do something weird and yet at the same time interesting. I've told you guys in recent videos that back in the day, around the early 2000s to 2010, or even prior to that, Xehanort's name shared the same similar paradox as Kingdom Hearts, where the letters in Kingdom Hearts can be shifted around to spell something dark. Xehanort can be swapped, or Xehanort's name can be swapped to spell another Chi. And I think this does outline exactly what would come to pass in the series, and it has deeper implications that the outlined context in Kingdom Hearts 3, Something Dark, becomes realized when Kingdom Hearts reveals to us, the players, that this purge Xehanort seeks would not be fulfilled by some divine light stretching out and destroying the universe like a big bang, but rather Kingdom Hearts shows itself to have a dark form.
Hearts, I call upon your true form.
Open now and show me the world to come.
Does Xehanort's name equaling another Chi, I think, has everything to do with all of the established lore we already discussed within this very video and others. Let's take 2 steps back real quick. In the past, Kingdom Hearts had a counterpart called the X-Blade. The Master of Masters and Darknesses come from this age where the X-Blade existed and was later destroyed. The implication of how the Darknesses come into being is synonymous with the legend of the X-Blade itself. At one point, they were one, but they split into many. They were E Pluribus Uno. There's also another 7 pieces of the X-Blade. The Master of Masters describes himself and the foretellers to be 7. And the primordial darknesses are darknesses that are free from the shackles of being one with the 20, a harmonious, even number. Let's now dive into Xehanort. He initially tries to use Vanitas and Ventus to create an X-Blade. When these plans come together properly, Vanitas and Ventus successfully merge and we get 2 X-Blades. Interestingly, these 2 blades have different appearances. On the outside, while wielded by Ventus, the blade has the form we know it to have across the series. However, inside their Station of Awakening, the one Vanitas wields has a decayed and chipped form. So here's a question I wanted to propose, although this is not the theory itself. Do you think that this version of the X-Blade is the version Vanitas and the other darknesses are initially a part of, thus it shares a different form? During this battle with Aqua and within the heart with Ventus, Vanitas mentions that there's a door that leads to all worlds, where he threatens to connect every world to the Keyblade graveyard, which would spark another Keyblade war. Xehanort later would lament this initial plan, stating that this was something he did out of his eagerness, that he lost the correct way to achieve summoning the X-Blade. And this is how we got Ansem and Xemnas planning to forge a pseudo Kingdom Hearts made of the hearts of worlds and the hearts of people, with the end goal being to hook up all the members of Xemnas' organization to either version of Kingdom Hearts and fill them with the exact same heart, thus corrupting their minds and turning them into Xehanorts. But even this isn't particularly the correct means by which Xehanort would get his 13 Seekers. It'd be through time travel that Xehanort would have his younger self recruit the appropriate members to the tried and true 13 Seekers of Darkness, in which Xehanort himself would bestow his essence utilizing the Keyblade to all 13 members. Then after the 7 Guardians of Light assembled, he would observe the small-scale Keyblade War as the 13 Seekers all go to their deaths, absorbing their higher dimensional energy that's released when they clash with strong wills of light, finally achieving the goal and summoning the X-Blade, another Chi. So this seems like a circular set of events, as without this thinking, the Master of Masters meeting Xehanort would serve no overarching relevance to the narrative. Destiny is never left to chance. Thus, Xehanort was always going to be the one to summon the X-Blade back into the world, regardless of whether or not he ever met the Master of Masters. So the Master of Masters must have had him hyper-focused on this goal for a reason. And this even makes sense in a way you'd never expect. At the end of Kingdom Hearts 3, Xehanort bestows the legendary weapon to Sora, right? What if Sora, who was called a delivery boy in Kingdom Hearts 1, and during the secret ending, Yozora, We can see the Master of Masters witnesses when Sora awakens in unreality and then is present there himself at the end of the same secret ending. Maybe this idea never ceased to be the case, and Sora, as Xehanort's successor in wielding the X-Blade, may fulfill this role that was hinted at within Kingdom Hearts 1 in delivering the X-Blade to the Master of Masters. Xehanort was simply another victim in the Master of Masters' grand machinations or his grand plan.